Check, check, yep.
Hey, look at where I am. I snuck in behind enemy lines. Mark, what are you doing over there? Huh?
Hey, Tyler, it's Youthox, and it's either one of two things have happened. And this will certainly become quite quickly the episode where you either came to your senses and started rooting for the right team, or perhaps you really did get captured. But my question is, have you succumbed to Stockholm Syndrome yet?
It's been about, I don't know,
10 minutes that I've had this background behind me and I'm already losing it, So,
It's all
yeah,
right, Joe.
yeah.
Yeah. So you got to get your Boston accent.
No,
Pretty.
man,
We're
I don't have
talking
one of
about
those.
the Red Sox. The Red Sox are here, so we're pretty excited about it.
I have my one semblance of good in reality, and this is my truth that I'm holding on to during this time. So
You're centering yourself, centering yourself on those Yankees, those doggone Yankees. Although this show isn't even, I think this is like a TV7 show, so I can't even say the name of a Broadway play because it doesn't say dang Yankees. So
that's right. Those darn Yankees. Yeah.
doggone Yankees.
Doggone.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, just hanging in there and feeling a little bit weary, I guess. Not weary, but just kind of worn down from just from the last week or so, and a lot going on, lots of home projects and stuff. And the reason I have the background behind me, just in full disclosure, is because I did not get enough sleep. I have a deal where if I go to bed at a certain time, I don't have to make up any minutes, and I did not make those minutes up that I.
So you've been a bad boy.
I have, yeah. So this is my punishment right here. But throughout the video, I may just be swapping around to different spots in Fenway Park.
Well, I like what you're doing. We are getting some few comments though. People already commenting about the this could be the episode where Tyler realizes the Red Sox are better. Or you can't. But Alyssa says you can't get to wear a Yankees hat to cover up the Red Sox. So she doesn't really. She feels like you're not really being true.
I'm not covering it up. I'm just
to the bet.
Yeah. So, and it's a good thing that you guys have Mookie Betts still, because he is one of the best players in the league, and you guys really would challenge the Yankees with it. Oh wait, he's not on your team anymore. He's on the Dodgers. I'm sorry. No. Okay, enough fooling around.
I don't think you're into the spirit of this quite yet. It is really true. The Stockholm syndrome has not yet set in because you don't really feel like you're a Boston fan quite yet. But thank you, McKenna, for the accent shout out, though she did give me one on the accent. I do like to move through accents quickly and never holding to the same one or ever being able to reproduce it. So that's my goal with any voice that I use, is you can't actually use it again. So whatever that's worth. But hey, by the way, it's a kind of exciting for you. I know you have a mother. I have a mother, and it's going to be Mother's Day on Sunday. So do you have any good off the top of your head, any good, or, well, it's your mother. I'm sure there's good, but like that. But any good mother stories or funny things that you remember your mom doing, or that have carried on in the folklore in the family of mom activities or anything?
It's a good question. You're catching me off guard with it.
Yeah. Well, you think about it. I was thinking about in my house, and I love my mother. My dad was pretty. I have two older brothers. My oldest brother, my dad was probably always a little reluctant to play the heavy and all of that. But he did a little bit with my oldest brother. Then when it came to my brother Marty and I, and by the way, it's my brother's birthday this Saturday. Shout outs to him. Happy birthday, Marty. He's a good brother. And anyway, so when we were growing up, the envelope a little bit. With what he could get away with mom. And I do have a picture in my mind of my mother with her gritted teeth and a wooden spoon in her hand, ready to chase and paddle my brother. She carried out some of the discipline in that. So I don't think can you spank children anymore? Maybe that's probably against the law, but it wasn't back in the 70s. When I grew up. So
I don't think it's against the law. It's just frowned upon at this point. And obviously there's a fine line of what's too far, what's actually spanking, and what's abusive,
Right.
But we don't need to get into that now. So
can you talk harshly to a child anymore? I don't think you can.
Yeah.
Sure.
You cannot discipline them in any way. Yeah, okay,
no. In no way at all.
Let's not go down that rabbit trail right now.
Well, that's fine. I don't really, I would be accused of not disciplining my children very much. My son, Sam, there was some moments in his early days where I tried to play the heavy. And then he's a pretty stubborn, strong-willed fellow. So at some point, I think he probably broke me. He was like Rambo, held by the Vietnamese as a prisoner. He's like, "You will not break me." And and then they quit. They gave up and they let him go. And I think I let him go. And they've accused me of not actually disciplining my daughter in any sense of the word. But I don't know if that's true. But
I'm sure if Sam was here, he'd have some comments on that too. But
yeah, I'm sure he would.
Yeah, getting back to mothers, I did think of something. It's kind of the ongoing joke with me and my brothers. I should say, we're all in separate homes now, but my mom was kind of forgetful, and so
Right.
she would leave her car keys different places in her coffee cup, and she'd always be running around the house, when she's having to leave, jump in the
Right.
car and go somewhere. It's like, "Have you guys seen my keys? Have you guys seen my coffee?" And so there was one point where I don't know if she actually did it, but I think one of us got smart and said, when she'd ask for her keys, we'd combine the two, coffee and keys, and say, "Have you what do we say? Did you check the microwave?" Right? Because she'd often leave her coffee in the microwave, forget that she had
Right.
heated it up.
Heat it up,
Searching
yeah.
around for it. Did you check the microwave? But then, she'd lose her keys too, and so we'd say, when she's asking for keys, "Hey, did you check the microwave?" Because
Right.
that would go well, putting keys in the microwave.
we should try that.
Yes. Yeah.
We can have the episode where we actually went Mythbusters and stuck some metal in the microwave just to see what happens. So
Yeah. I think we'd
I
lose
don't
our
know. Is it
signal.
really true? Does it really spark? If you put a penny in there, I don't know. I think it does.
I can tell you that a fork will spark, because I've done that one on accident.
Oh.
So,
Well, we should be encouraging in a good way to our audience. We don't want to encourage them to do well. I guess I don't know. I'm not going to make a comment. You put something in the microwave, it's it's on you. I'm not taking responsibility for that.
Your parents will come after you.
I do remember the interesting thing about microwaves. Actually, reminds me of my mother. We were looking at getting one in probably late 70s or something like that, and I remember talking about my mother's. She's always had concerns about certain things, and her big question to ask the microwave salesman is like, "Are we going to get radiated? Are we going to have like radiation poisoning if we get this?" So she was fearful of that back in the day.
Yeah.
But I do remember our first one. It was in the corner, and those things were. I mean, it was big and noisy, but it was amazing.
Nice.
I mean, it was revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know I like to heat up mac and cheese in it, so it's convenient. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, some people do the Hot Pocket things.
Yeah.
I had a good buddy in high school. He was a Hot Pocket guy, so there was like Hot Pockets being cooked all the time. And but they had that little package, and I'm like, and they still do. It's sort of like tinfoil-ish, and that's supposed to crisp it, and that just doesn't feel like that's really right. Somehow that feels Hot Pockets seem wrong to me. Somehow.
Well, especially when you take them out and you let it sit for 10 minutes and you bite into it and it's still scalding hot. You burn your mouth with
That's right. It's like lava.
Yeah.
It's like liquid glue. Yeah. It's like heated, on the Kelvin scale somewhere. 451 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Which I haven't read for years, but I hear that's a bit novel. But we'll see. Hey, interestingly enough, before we go on too long, we do have an interview today that we've done. We have an opportunity. We had an opportunity to visit with Kim Sackman, who is a nurse at Samaritan Hospital. Interestingly enough, came out of nursing school, and that was the first place she's went. She has almost 20 years of work there, and so we have an opportunity to visit with her. And hopefully, this will be a little of an appeasement to our female viewers, because we kind of skewed a little bit to the left, to the right, I should say, because it was the men's sports side. Not to classify whether that's right or wrong.
Does that mean the left is wrong? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to go there. I mean, people can fill in the
men are
blanks.
right and the left is wrong, is what you're saying.
And there's men are right and everything, and there's everything else. So do what you want with that. I'm not going to classify. That's up to you. You're a grown audience. You know what to do with that. Anyway, so we do have a chance. We're going to visit with her. I think you're going to enjoy this interview. We're going to talk about her experience, and especially now in the present day, with the COVID situation, how that's worked at the hospital here in the local community. So if it's okay, why don't we go ahead and roll that, and then we'll let you partake of that, and then we'll come back and we'll take some questions from the audience and go from there.
Sounds good.
We're so excited. We've got special guest today, Kim Sackman, who's a local nurse, and actually it's Nurses Week this week. So it's kind of special to honor those who do so much for everybody. So Kim, welcome. We're glad you're with us today.
We are, even though you don't really look local with the Golden Gate Bridge behind you.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, I just wanted to show that I know how to do this.
Well, you would be the only one then.
My very first Zoom meeting, and so far, like, I've gotten this thing to work on the first try, and I learned how to do a background, and that's the free one, and that's the only one I'm getting. So this is what y'all get.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and some of you may recognize Kim from her former middle school ministry volunteering days, and so hopefully she's familiar to some of you.
Still me.
Yeah.
I don't see any scars at all, so you did okay.
No scars, right?
Still smiling even.
Kim has one middle schooler currently and one high schooler currently, and one who has graduated high school. So she's very familiar with the youth.
At the Mother's Day, I just thought of Mother's Day right before we got started, and then that's it. Can't go wrong. We're so excited. We've got special guest today, Kim Sackman, who's a local nurse, and actually it's Nurses Week this week. So it's kind of special to honor those who do so much for everybody. So Kim, welcome. We're glad you're with us today.
We are, even though you don't really look local with the Golden Gate Bridge behind you.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, I just wanted to show that I know how to do this.
Well, you would be the only one then.
My very first Zoom meeting, and so far, like, I've gotten this thing to work on the first try, and I learned how to do a background, and that's the free one, and that's the only one I'm getting. So this is what y'all get.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and some of you may recognize Kim from her former middle school ministry volunteering days, and so hopefully she's familiar to some of you.
Still me.
I don't see any scars at all, so you did okay.
No scars, right?
Still smiling even.
Kim has one middle schooler currently and one high schooler currently, and one who has graduated high school. So she's very familiar with the youth world. And so, so Kim, why don't you tell us, a little bit about you and what you do for a living?
Okay. Well, I am a nurse, a registered nurse, and I graduated from nursing school in 2000. So that means that by the summer, I'll have been a nurse for 20 years. And I've been working at Samaritan Hospital here in Moses Lake that whole time in the mother-baby unit, which means that I help deliver babies and take care of the moms and the new babies afterwards. And it's a really fun job, and it's really cool. We get to do that really cool thing all the time.
Yeah. How did you, was maternity care there, was that something that you were interested in right away, or did you move into that after a period of time?
No, So when I started nursing school, one of the things you do in nursing school is they kind of like put you around to follow other nurses in different like areas, different departments, and you kind of go all over, and you work all over in different places in the hospital. You go work at the nursing homes, you go work in like all these different places that nurses are needed. And the first time that they sent me to the OB department, like I knew like right away, like that was it. I didn't want to go anywhere else. I didn't want to learn about anything else. I just only wanted to do OB. I still did all the other things and still learned all the other things, but I was really focused on OB after that. And like after that first time, I just knew for sure that that's where I was going to go. Everybody knew it. Like I did like some pretty intensive training there at the end of my schooling, and the boss that worked there at the time knew I wanted to work there, and she was impressed with me, I guess, and she told me that, you know, she would definitely be hiring me after I graduated. And
right.
So I hired right into OB.
And our local OB department here is fairly busy. Has it been busy during this time of shutdown, or has people stopped having babies?
Yeah, we've been slammed. We've been really, really busy. We've been, I mean, it's a busy time of year for us anyway. For whatever reason, the spring is a busy time. People seem to have a lot of babies in the spring. So that's just gone and continued. And we're very busy. There's only one other hospital anywhere near us that can deliver babies, that can provide that service, and that's the hospital in Othello. So we get all the patients from the surrounding areas. So not just Moses Lake patients, but patients from Ephrata and Soap Lake, and a lot of Quincy patients, because our clinics here in town have satellite clinics over in Quincy. So those patients come to us to be delivering with their doctor. You know, Ritzville, Warden, Grand Coulee, Coulee City, like all of Grant County comes to Moses Lake pretty much.
How many babies are coming through there, showing up there every week these days on an average week?
I guess we've been averaging around between 80 and 90 a month right now. So what is that, like 20 a week?
Like 20 a week. Okay, so three or four new ones every day.
Yep, that's about average. Yeah, but it never happens that way. We get like 9 in one day and none in the next. You know, like it's just how it works out.
Yeah, so that sounds like there'd just be a lot of, I mean, those busy days, it's just like you're involved on a shift like that of just never hardly stopping to breathe, I suppose.
Yeah, there are some days that are like that where you just feel a little overwhelmed, you know, with the volume of patients that are coming through the door that all need to be taken care of. And, you know, I mean, everybody needs to have good care when they come to the hospital. But, I mean, these mamas, they're having a baby. It's a really big deal. They're never going to forget that. It's a huge life event, and you want to do everything you can to make sure that that's special for them and that you do it the way they want it. And, you know, that they feel, you know, cared for and taken care of and safe. And so you want to be able to spend a lot of time with them and take care of them right. So when it's really, really busy like that, it's hard to balance that out.
Yeah. Now, you've probably seen a lot of change in the hospital itself, the physical facility over those 20 years. There's been a lot of improvement, obviously, in that time.
Yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way. We've come a long way from when I first started, and the way that we manage obstetric care is what I'm familiar with. So the way that we manage that has gotten much, much better. We're doing a much better job.
What does that mean when you say manage obstetric care? What goes into managing when you say that?
Well, it's like, you know, like should we induce patients? You know, everybody, you know, by the time they're pregnant for 9 months, they're kind of tired of being pregnant. It's kind of a miserable.
That's what I hear. I don't know.
It's kind of a miserable state to be in for most people, and they kind of want that baby out. But we're finding out, you know, that that's not always the best approach. You know, so that's one way that we manage it. You know, we help teach patients like that maybe it's better to stay pregnant for a little while longer, let their body kind of take control of what's happening, you know, but at the same time, there can be pregnancy complications, you know, and sometimes those can be dangerous. So you have to be able to find those patients and know which ones shouldn't stay pregnant anymore. And those patients do need to get induced. And so then you have to figure out what's the best way to induce this mama, you know, to get, you know, this baby out safely and with the least amount of, you know, intervention and trauma and things like that. And so that's kind of a little balancing act that we do there. And also, you know, everybody, you know, I tell people they plan their births kind of the way they plan their weddings. A lot of them do, you know, except the things don't quite go off the way that, you know, you think they're gonna when you're having a baby always. And so
I can attest to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But so sometimes, you know, these ladies come in with a certain plan in mind, a certain expectation, things that they definitely want and things they definitely don't want. And we can manage their care based on what they want for the most part, you know, but not always. Sometimes we have to deviate from their plan a little bit to make sure that we're taking care of them right. But, you know,
right.
There's a lot of right ways to do it. And so we manage their care based on their desires and their preferences too.
Well, I've watched, I do have a wife who likes some reality television. I've watched a few of the Bridezilla show. So I'm trying to, in my mind, thinking about someone approaching having a baby, like, you know, planning a wedding or having a wedding dress. And I'm I'm not sure where to go with some of that thought. That's an interesting.
It happens. We have a little joke. That the more pages long that the birth plan is, the sooner we're going to end up in the operating room.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Best laid
Mhm.
plans of
Mhm.
mothers and people. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
How many people are involved in our, as far as nurses and doctors kind of deal with the patient care? Do you have any idea? I mean,
For like one patient?
no. From in general, like how many in our area here, how many nurses are currently involved in this birthing process? And, you know, when you have 9 babies a day, sometimes are there just a handful of nurses that are involved in that and just a couple of doctors, or are there many doctors that coming from different?
So the patient has her doctor or provider, because we have some midwives that also work with us. So that's one. And then if the patient gets complicated, then they need a specialist, so an OBGYN. So that might be, they might already have an OBGYN, but if they don't, then that's a second doctor that we pull in to help. And then there's usually an anesthesia provider. So that's a third person, you know, either they're getting an epidural or, you know, some kind of, you know, pain relief. So that's a third provider that comes in. And then that patient gets their own nurse for while they're in labor. They have a nurse that's just their one nurse. So, and then our department for like a normal shift, we have what we call core staffing, which is the what we try to make sure that we have scheduled on any given day that should cover an average shift. And so that core staffing is 1 charge nurse and 5 staff nurses that should be on the floor working on any given day. So any given day, any given shift, we normally have 1 charge nurse and 5 other nurses working. And then we have an aide, an OB tech who helps with surgery and also helps us do like all our vital signs and things. And we also have what's called a health unit coordinator, which is also an aide who's more involved in like scheduling and coordinating, like making charts and like the paperwork kind of part of things. So that's 5, 6, 7, that's 8 staff people plus the providers on any given day. So on a really busy day though, yeah, that's a lot of people. On a really busy day, then we're starting to call in extra help. So then we'll add to that. So if we have one of those, 9 babies is a lot for us, but it's not unusual to have 5 or 6 in a day. So on a busy day like that, we'd be calling in like 2 or 3 extra nurses to help us with that shift. And then if we have a day when maybe there's only 1 or 2 babies born or none, then we would start to rotate people through what we call low census, because low census means there's a low number of people in the hospital, patients in the hospital. We rotate through and put people on call. So then that would be, we would leave a nurse at home and she would be on call in case we got busy. We could call her to come in. Yeah.
Which now that all is interesting compared with your department. Everything else in the hospital is low census, right? I mean, that's probably got to been pretty different. How's that been with, you know, with the restrictions, you know, with the rest of the hospital?
It's been rough. Yeah. So the what's going on at the hospital right now, first of all, if you go to the hospital, which I would not recommend to anybody right now, but if you happen to like drive through that parking lot, you'll see big, huge signs like in the front of the building that say stop, you know, don't come in here. And if you do, you have to go to a screening checkpoint. And it's like, it's really scary to like walk in. It looks like you're walking into like a very dangerous place in a way, you know. It's like, it definitely looks like a place where you would not want to voluntarily walk through those doors. Okay. So big, huge signs. They're like bright yellow boards that have big, huge letters and a big, huge stop sign that says stop, do not enter. If you have da, 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 do not come in this door, call this number instead. And then all the nurses and everybody who comes in the hospital, actually patients, visitors, everybody who comes in the hospital, we have to stop and get screened before we can go anywhere. And so that means we get our temperature taken, and they ask us a bunch of questions like, have we been coughing? Have we been feeling sick? You know, and then once you pass that test, then they give you a mask. Everybody who walks in the hospital gets a mask. And then I've been saving all of mine. I have them right here. So everybody gets a mask like this to wear. Can you see it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As soon as you walk in the door, and you have to wear that all the time, 100% of the time. The only time you can take it off is if you're in the break room all by yourself and eating, and then you have to put it back on. And then we have other special masks that are even better that we have to wear when we're actually taking care of the patient.
Yeah, the point was here that everywhere else there isn't anything going on because they have restricted all of the other departments.
Yes. So
what's that like in the hospital community? Because a lot of people aren't working, in the end.
there's a couple different things that are happening across the nation as far as like hospitals right now. You have some hospitals like I know some nurses who work over on the west side of the state who their hospitals are really busy. They have a lot of sick patients who have tested positive for COVID, and they're there and they're taking care of those patients. It's kind of scary, right? And they're busy. But then you have other parts of the state or other parts of the country where there's nothing happening. Like our part of the country is very rural. And so I think that there's just not been as much exposure here. And we haven't had very many cases of COVID here in Grant County. I get an update every day that has the numbers that my hospital has tested. This isn't accurate numbers for like the whole Grant County. This is just Samaritan's numbers. But so far we've tested about 600 or 700 people. We've had 63, I believe, come back positive, and we have about 40 that are still waiting for the test results. So we've only had, for Samaritan, only since the beginning of March, only about 60 or 70 patients that have come back positive, and most of those have not been very sick. But there have been a few. Where I'm going with that is because everybody has to wear a mask all the time, 100% of the time, we're getting really, really short on these. That's why I'm saving these, because I don't know how many more there's going to be. And I don't know how long I'm going to need those. So patients who require surgery, you have to wear a mask like this in the operating room all of the time to prevent getting infection inside those open wounds when you're operating on somebody.
Right. Sure.
So we're trying to conserve staff and we're trying to conserve supplies. And so for that reason, the governor of Washington has completely prohibited any elective surgery, which is pretty much every surgery. The only kind of surgeries that can happen are ones that, like, if your appendix ruptures or something like that, that are absolutely unavoidable. The person is having a life-threatening problem that can't be avoided unless we do surgery on them. And so because of that, that's where most of our patients come from in the hospital. Most of our patients are surgical patients. You think about people who get their knees replaced or their hips replaced or their hernias repaired or any other number of surgeries. Those are all considered elective surgeries, and none of those are getting done now. And so we just don't have very many patients in the hospital. And that's causing a big problem for hospitals like mine across America, because those patients are where we get almost all of our money. Surgical patients are where the hospital gets almost all of the money that it uses to pay the nurses and to buy supplies and to keep the hospital up and running. So without those patients, we don't have any revenue coming in. And all those nurses that take care of those patients don't have anything to do. We're having a really hard time finding work for those nurses, and they're starting to lay people off, which is really it's just a really weird situation. We're in the middle of a health pandemic where you would think that every healthcare professional would be needed and utilized, but at the same time, in the middle of this huge health crisis, we have a lot of nurses and healthcare providers who don't have work and are finding themselves unemployed right now.
Yeah, that makes the tough situation of trying to balance concern for this virus and what it might do with the reality of people's lives and work. So I don't certainly want to put you on the spot, but there's certainly got to be a difficult, if you had conversations inside the walls going, hey, this is a hard life. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
everybody outside, I think, is saying we got to learn how do we balance this, because, you know, whether it's the economy or jobs, and if we throw something out like, well, no one can die, you know, and it's hard to have a conversation when you start talking like that, because, you know, in the
Yeah.
healthcare field and in life, people die. It's unavoidable to a certain degree in life.
Yes.
And that doesn't make us callous for that. But at the same time, you know, we can't look to say, honestly, approaching this situation, the only way to get zero transmission is that everyone was literally locked in their home and they never left. But that doesn't ultimately resolve it. So I'm wondering what's, you know, going inside, how does the leadership speak to everybody? How do they encourage you? You know, what's going on to say, hey, we can get through this. Here's how we see it. You know, is there something you can pass on to us from the word inside the walls, maybe?
Our leadership has been very positive. They've done a good job of acknowledging the stress and the scariness of the situation and the seriousness of the situation. They've done a good job of being objective, which means like not emotional about the way that they talk about it. They just kind of give us the numbers and say, listen, this is where we're at. This is the problem. This is why it's a problem. This is what we're doing about it. You know, this is what we need you guys to do for us. You know, we see you, we care about you. I think my hospital, I think, has done actually a very good job of doing that. But yeah, the problem with this situation is that there's kind of two sides of the problem, and the solution, there is no good outcome. There's either an outcome where you save the economy and more people get sick and die, or you try to preserve people's well-being, their health, and the economy gets sick and dies. There's a bad outcome regardless of how you approach trying to solve the problem. And so, and there's repercussions either way. And I'm not smart enough to know the answer to that, but I've done a whole lot of thinking about it. People over on, especially like in Eastern Washington, in this area of the state that hasn't been really that severely impacted by COVID-19. I think that like numbers, as last week, we've only had 2 COVID deaths in Grant County since the beginning of all of this. Right. So people over here are very vocal about wanting to start doing surgery again, start bringing in revenue, start opening up businesses, start getting back to like what we think of as normal life, and start getting money back out into our economy and get going and give these nurses back their jobs and start working,
So kind of on the flip side of that, then, those like with all the regulations and restrictions in place, how much of that do you think has kept the virus from spreading around?
I think it has actually, I think it has made a big impact. I think that, Washington State was actually one of the first states to really lock down and get serious about it. And, people are pretty mad at our governor about what he's been doing, but I do think that he has actually done a pretty good job of trying to stem the severity and the impact of it. I know like on the west side of the state, those hospitals are looking at a different scenario. They're very, very busy, and they're taking care of very sick patients, and it's a little different. It's very eye-opening when you actually see a patient on a ventilator that you're doing everything you can for them, and they're so sick with something that shouldn't be killing them, and they are, but I don't know, it's just really hard. It's really hard. We know our experience, and it's hard to see another person's experience and understand it for the way that they see it. There's just, I don't know. I don't think that either answer is right or wrong. I think that we just have to do the best we can with what we're being given right now. And they first started like taking our temperatures and giving us masks when we walked into the hospital. That first week that I worked like that, at the end of that week, the last day, I came home from work and I had a little cough, just a little tiny little, you know,
Mhm.
and no fever or anything like that. But I was like, you know, it's hard to take a deep breath. Like it kind of hurt a little bit. And I was like, what is
Yeah.
this? You
What's
know,
going
like
on?
I've been like at the place where I get the most exposure to it. And I know that there are patients who've been in the hospital who've had it.
Mhm.
And it was really scary for a minute. It made me cry. I
Mhm.
thought, wow, you know, like probably this is not COVID. And if it is, I'm probably going to be okay. But what if I'm not? Like, what if I happen to be like one of those rare people who catches COVID and dies from it? You know, I don't want to die yet. And that kind of like made me, that was a very sobering thought. It made me kind of take pause and start to consider, you know, the way that like the other half of the country is looking at this, and think, yeah, you know what, there's validity to what they're saying as well.
Right.
And I can't like just write it off, you know. And as much as I wish that we could just do what we want and take our own, you know, health in our own hands, and take the risks that we want to take and let other people not, you know, at the same time, I still think like, you know, at least it's worth being respectful and open-minded towards the other side of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
absolutely, like anything, there's a need for balance in all of it. And so, you know, certainly appreciate, Kim, you know, hearing from you. And the thing I'll certainly take away is that, you know, it's great for you to be in a profession that you really love, you know, bottom line. And then, you know, in any place we're at, no matter where, you know, where we're at, no matter how much we like it, there are seasons where things are a little different. And this is definitely one of them. Definitely one of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been very, very interesting and eye-opening, and I think we're all learning as we go. But
I know, well, I am, except when I resist to learn, which is most. That's okay.
I really, really want it to be over.
Yeah.
And I really like continue to keep thinking, oh, we just have a couple more weeks and this is going to be done. And I'm starting to realize like, no, this is going to have like long term. This is going to be probably go on for the rest of the year, honestly, because we're going to start to reopen things, and then there's going to be a resurgence of cases that's going to happen.
Mhm.
And then, you know, it's just kind of wait and see like what,
Yep. Yeah, we're going to have to deal with it. I think there's no doubt that, you know, and if you change it, you're going to have more exposures and stuff will go up. The part is that hopefully we've been able to, quote, at the start of the whole lockdown was about flattening the curve and being prepared for the buildup. Because in the end, you know, we're going to have to, people are going to get exposed. It's going to happen. You can't shut it down forever unless your goal is to destroy the, you know, the economy and all that we normally do indefinitely. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see some of that changing. But I think for us, I appreciate, you know, Kim, just, you know, informing us, letting us know about your situation. We'll continue to pray and lift you up there. And I want all of our, you know, listeners and people to be caring for and praying for, and trusting that obviously, you know, in uncertain times, we need to rest upon the rock that will not be shaken in the midst of the storm, you know, our Lord Jesus Christ. So that's definitely for us. So,
you know, that's something that, at least the Christian providers that I, you know, have the privilege of knowing and working alongside of, you know, that's something that we haven't lost sight of, is that in the middle of this whole thing that seems so uncertain and so scary and so unpredictable and so uncontrolled, you know, we have God who absolutely is in control of this 100%. You know, there's a purpose behind this, a worldwide purpose. I think it's a pretty big purpose, and I really truly believe that God is using this to try to get humanity's attention and bring us to him and to rely on him and to, you know, trust in him. We do have that reassurance that he is in control of everything that's happening. I know it definitely has had that effect on me, you know, where I was kind of going along, living my life, doing my thing, not spending nearly as much time, you know, attending to my spiritual, you know, journey as I should have been. You know, that's been a real good way of helping me cope through all of this. And it's definitely, you know,
that happens. Suffering hard times, they tend to bring us back to the Lord, don't they, Tyler?
Yep. Yeah. And it certainly is one of the positives that's coming out of this, and see a lot of people turning to God. And yeah, Kim, I'm just, grateful for you, grateful for the other healthcare workers that are putting yourselves at risk by going in and still continuing to care compassionately
We
for
we
others.
appreciate prayers very
Yeah.
much. We need them. Our patients too. They
Yeah.
need prayers.
They need you and the other nurses there for that even more so, right? So yeah, and it really is a caring and compassionate profession. Is that you need to have those attributes. And Kim, I just in our conversation here, it's obvious that you do, and appreciate that about you. And yeah, and so we'll wrap it up here, and appreciate your time, Kim, and giving us a glimpse into your world
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Do
Always. God
appreciate
bless
it.
you. Take
Yeah.
care.
Thank you.
All right, Kim. Well, we will talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. We are so appreciative. I hope you all enjoyed that interview. I know for me personally, it was a good time to really learn. And, we all have our impressions about the way things are. We hear a lot of news stories about things, and it's just neat to hear from somebody that's on the inside that really knows what's going on. And quite honestly, one of the things I remarked to myself afterwards is just Kim's love of nursing and of people and of babies and children. And I'm so appreciative that she's part of our healthcare system. So that was pretty cool, Tyler. Absolutely.
It was, yeah. And I appreciated just her perspective and the heart that she has for it, and I think I mentioned it there at the end too, where, it's clear to be a nurse or to be in the medical profession, you have to have some care and compassion for other people, and so that's an important part of the job. And that bedside manner, as they call it, is crucial to being a good nurse or a good doctor there. So
yeah, appreciate all the people with us in your comments, and your good wishes and God blessings towards Kim and all of the staff there. So yeah, continue to do that. We have to really believe that God hears our prayers. He's going to do what God's going to do because that's his business. But he really does hear, and it does make a difference for us to continue to lift them up in prayer. And we just appreciate Kim, especially her history with us in the youth department. And hopefully, Lord willing, her schedule works around, we'll get her back in as a regular youth worker when things change for her. So that was just good stuff. So definitely. Wow. Hey, Tyler, I wanted to, if we can, you had an opportunity to put together a message as we continued our series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do, Joseph Part 2. Yes. We won't overuse that, but we could. If I had the graphic, we'd start talking about Hot Shots Part 2. And I was told that was an inappropriate movie once, but what the heck, just say it one more time and then someone can remind me. But anyway, so as we move to Part 2, can you give us a little, again, flavor as having gone through that message, what your takeaways were now as you think back on the whole thing, and maybe some key points for that message?
Yeah, absolutely. And essentially we talked about what do we do when we run into situations that are just difficult, where it's really hard, and you kind of get that shock factor that is like, okay, I have no words, I'm blown away here, bad way, and I don't know what to do. And so we looked at the story of Joseph, where the part where he his brothers plot to kill him, right? They see him coming from a distance. His dad had sent him to go check in on them, and they were probably hundreds of miles or 100 miles or so away from their home. And so his dad sends, hey, go check on your brothers and all the sheep and everything. And they see him coming and say, hey, let's kill him. And one of the brothers has a little bit of a heart, and there's, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in this pit for a while, And so,
yeah, things must not have been so good. I mean, if the story actually goes to that place where it's like, when he gets here, we're not just talking about how much we dislike him. We are literally going to, if we could strangle him, we would do it. And get away with it. That's a fascinating component. It's one of the things that I remark about the Bible stories that are from the Bible, that one of the ways to really have a sense that it's real and true is there's no hiding the details. There's not a sanitizing of that story. I mean, it's really, this is where they were at. These brothers were ready to kill this guy. And we're talking about, that's not a good thing. Obviously, But we see again this real cross section, because that happens. There are family dynamics and messed up situations that occur all the time, and so it's always powerful for me to kind of go through those stories and see those difficulties played out in our Bible.
Yeah, and so then the question we ended up asking is like, well, what do we do
Right.
when we run into those situations that are hurtful and that find us in that situation? Like, what's the next step? And basically, it boiled down to remembering that God is with us. That He is the one that is in control of all this, and that when there's nothing that we can do, we can at least know that God is there with us. And
Right.
so I, just encourage you guys, or encourage everyone to be real, and to understand that it's okay to feel what you're feeling in those moments. Now, but to also remember that God is there with you, that you can trust in Him, and that there's people there for you as well.
Right.
And hey, us being one of them, or a couple of them, hopefully.
And I'd encourage you, even as you're, you're getting our comments online and stuff, if you wanted to share just a quick moment for yourself where God was real, and you had to trust in that circumstance, where that was what was going to carry you through, those are always good to share. So if you've got one of those where you've seen God do that in your own life, or where you were pushed to a situation where you had to do that. So yeah, let us know. And so we just appreciate that and staying in touch with you. We did get, we have some questions that sent in about the message itself. So I think the first one we had Mario in the control booth, keeping a handle on things, keeping a handle on us, which is not easy to do. I don't think we can be stopped. We can only be hoped to be contained. So if you, though, would run, I think we had it from McKenna. If you've got that one for us, Mara, if you'd run that.
Hi, Tyler and Mark. So thank you for your video, Tyler, and thank you to both of you for continuing Youth Talks. If I was someone who was reading Joseph's story for the first time, I think I would be a little confused why he was treated so terribly. And Tyler, you said in Genesis 39:2a that the Lord was with Joseph. So why was he treated so terribly if he did nothing wrong to his brothers and if the Lord was with him?
Okay, thank you, McKenna. I think it's, again, I just appreciate the insightful comments. There's a couple things I would like to say in regards to it. One is that why do bad things happen to good people? It's the title of a book, and it's the title of people's questions all the time. They've often been asked, and that's a difficult one to just for people to answer in a certain context. But I would, the thing I was thinking of is that oftentimes we think we see everything, like we have the picture, the whole story. And so when we look at it and we say it at surface value, that seems like that doesn't make sense. Imagine, if you will, I was thinking of just a couple illustrations. Maybe it was like you were in a big city walking down the street, and all of a sudden you saw somebody chasing somebody else, and it looked like they were in danger. And you'd be all frightened, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get killed. I got to call the police. And then suddenly you step back to realize that there are cameras and there's lights, and it's actually a studio. I mean, it's a set, it's a scene, and they're just play acting. In that moment, you realize, well, wait a minute, I didn't see everything that was going on. I only saw this one part of it, and I believed it to be this thing. I didn't understand there was a larger thing going on. Even imagine in your own home, as parents discipline children. Often to the child, it makes no sense at all why a parent would offer some measure of discipline for a situation. But as a parent, you would say, look, I'm trying to shape and train this child in a particular way. So I'm going to put boundaries on them because I believe it's best in their bigger interest. So the one thing I'd offer to you is that we'll see this all through Joseph's life, is that there is a bigger story going on. There was a bigger story than just the immediate thing that was going on. We had regular human beings, sinful, fallen human beings, but there's a bigger narrative, a much bigger God story going on, even there. And we'll see it again as we continue through the weeks. But in your own life, there is a larger story going on. In my life, there's a larger story going on all the time. And if I get bogged down in the minutiae, in the one detail in front of me, it doesn't seem to make sense. But if our God, the creator of the universe, who's got it all in his hands, has this larger plan, he would say to me, Mark, you don't understand right now, but this is part of a bigger story. And I'm doing something in your life that right now maybe doesn't make sense to you, but ultimately it will make sense. So part of this leads us back to the same place that we often go with God, is that we quite honestly need to have faith and we need to trust God that he is in control of the bigger picture. And obviously, as we can see in this story, doesn't mean we don't stand up against real injustice. Obviously, there's wrongs that we're going to step into. We're not going to just let things happen. But in that circumstance, but oftentimes we can say that about any kind of personal suffering, whether it's a financial hardship, whether it's a disease that doesn't seem to have a cause that we can immediately put to, that there's, we can see that there's no, in our humanness, why would that ever happen? Why would that make sense? And I would say to you, we still have to go back to God first and say, all right, God, if there's a way for you to let me know some of the bigger picture, let me. Otherwise, give me the faith to trust you through some of this.
Yep, good word. Let's move right to the second question here, and this one is from Melissa.
I just got done watching the talk, and that hit me hard. So thank you, Tyler, because I think it's a really powerful message right now as we walk into the unknown as a country and have those no word emoji moments. So my question is you said it's okay to have lows, which I totally agree with. And so how do you be real with God and have those lows while staying close to him and still trusting that he has a bigger plan for you? Because it's easy to just dwell on the lows or fake it and not recognize them, and you need to do both. So how do you balance that in your life? Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Alyssa. And I think something we all kind of wonder and are trying to figure out, and I know even in my own life, there's times where I'm asking that same question. And, something I think that is helpful and has helped me is just to remember that when we're in the middle of the lows, whatever we're feeling, we can take that to God, and expressing our feelings of sadness or disappointment or even doubt. That's not something that like God is offended by. It's not like he's like, oh, you're not trusting me. What's wrong with you? I'm going to banish you to hell now or something, So that's not how God acts. But rather he wants us to go to him with those things. And so, how do we balance being real with God and not like being disrespectful or dishonoring him in some way? That's another question. But I think God created our emotions. He created us to be emotional beings, and so he wants us to express those to him. And all you got to do is look to the Psalms for examples of how people in Scripture have done that before. David is regularly turning to God, saying, "How long, O Lord, am I going to be suffering like this? How long are you going to allow this evil and this injustice to happen?" And what I love though is like, even in the ones where he's expressing those feelings pretty intensely, at the end of it he always says, "But I will trust you, Lord." And you think of it like any good relationship where the closeness that you have with that person isn't really determined by how good things are going and how well you're, everything's happy-go-lucky or like that. That doesn't really determine your closeness, but closeness is determined on how you stay connected with that person through the hard times too. And so just like with me and my wife, if I'm going through some hard stuff, I got to go tell her about it. She'll be there, support me and encourage me, and to put me in my place if I need to be corrected, and that's the same thing with God. He wants us to go to him with those feelings, and express, whatever it is that we're feeling. And we can ask him why, he's not always going to give us an answer, but we can ask. And kind of, again, going back to what Mark was saying with the previous question, where, help me see the bigger picture. Help me see what you're trying to do here in me. Give me eyes to see the work that you're trying to accomplish in me and around me. And I think that's important, and that's helped me kind of connect with God in those low moments of life, the ones that are shocking or difficult. And I can say that oftentimes God has given me some insight into what it is. Maybe it's not right away. Maybe it's months, years later, but I can look back on some of those moments and say, all right, God, I see how you were preparing me, and that just makes me want to be even closer to God, and trust him even more. So yeah, great question there, Alyssa.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
And sometimes you get an answer in that and you get some insight, sometimes you don't, and the trust issue fits in there. McKenna had written online that she in her own life, when having to move from one place to another in the country, left things behind.
Mhm.
And that was a difficult time, but met a best friend there in that move, and actually grew during that time. So, when we do have those seasons where stuff is difficult, the challenges, the struggles, that's really where, as we look back, the growth occurs. Nobody seems to like it. The pain is not very fun, but it really does change us. And especially as a believer. An unbeliever can be changed by their struggles and can grow through that. There's no doubt about it. But a believer has this larger perspective, and things really do change in that. If we look at our own lives through those struggles, it's hard to go, say, I don't really want to go back to that, but I wouldn't get rid of it, because I wouldn't be who I was without it. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that gives you a little bit of a taste of what Mark's going to be talking about this next week in his sermon too. A little bit of purpose in the struggle. So
yes, we'll see if I can stay on task during that time. The interesting thing I was thinking about, giving these messages, it's not like, obviously I like to be jovial and have some fun. I like to see people laugh. But the funny thing always happens when I'm giving a message and you start doing this God talk thing, it's hard to just be like a total goofball with it, because you feel connected and serious about it. So sometimes people go, boy, you get real serious. And I go, yeah, but in life, that's the only thing I ever found that made real sense and to be really connected to was God's stories, the story and life of Christ. And so in those moments, you kind of get really intense. And so it's nice to kind of mix it up, because with it and to have some fun. So I will try to put that in there. But if I ever get serious, you got to understand it's just relevant, important things, and you just feel connected to it. So grateful for the chance to share.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, guys, we've loved connecting with you today through this, and hope to remain connected. And so if there's, we've got Instagram and Facebook and website that you can stay connected with us on, and that stuff, all the links that will be in the description for this video. So check that out, and and stay connected, stay in touch with what we're doing. And we'll be back next week for this. And like I said, Mark will have his video up, and so look for that coming at you next Wednesday.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Again, I want to thank Tyler, as always, co-hosting with me for Youth Talks. We're having a good time, maybe getting a little better at this even week to week. I want to thank Mario in the booth. Had a guest in there. Sam was in there today, checking things out, trying to learn a little bit, because you'd be amazed at how many things are going on for Mario all the time. So we couldn't do it without you, and we so appreciate all that you've done to make this possible, certainly as we move into the future. Again, I want to thank Kim for being a guest with us and sharing her heart. You can see there was no doubt when you were done with that lady cares about what she's doing. She's connected with what she's doing. And that's a great place to be at. And I hope that all of you are watching, that you will seek with a real determined heart to see passion in your life for what you do and where you're spending your time. And you can do any kind of job and do that. And if you allow God to work through you, you can have passion in every place that you're at. I wanted to close with a couple of verses from Ephesians, and we'll wrap things up. This is from a paraphrased version, so it may sound a little different than what you're used to, but I just like the way the authors put this together. So this is from Ephesians 3, verses 17 and 18. It goes like this. And it's my prayer for you. My prayer is that Christ will be more and more at home in your hearts, living within you as you trust in him. May your roots go down deep into the soil of God's marvelous love. And may you be able to feel and understand, as all God's children should, how long, how wide, how deep, and how high his love really is, and to experience this love for yourselves. Though it is so great that you will never see the end of it, or fully know or understand it. And so at last, you will be filled up with God himself. Well, I think that's a great way to leave. We love you guys. Appreciate all of you. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Bye.
See you.